A client just dropped off this 70s champ, and I'm very curious about it. He says that someone made mods to it, and the treble pot is really just a tone circuit, and the bass pot doesn't seem to do anything. And it has a note from whoever did the mod saying, I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed learning how to work on amps with this, which is never the most promising thing to read. I have no idea what I'm going to find in here. Maybe everything will just be little bitty things that are different. Maybe everything will be great. This could be fantastic. We'll find out. The owner says he wants it put back to stock. Let's see what that will entail. I've got it plugged into my current limiter. I'm going to power it on. Got the volume off, the treble at noon, and the bass at noon. Let's see what we hear when it first comes up. Well, I'm not hearing anything horrible. It's brighter and darker. That indeed seems to do nothing. Well, let's see what it sounds like in this state. It's possible that someone just turned this into a 50s style circuit. Well, it has no low end whatsoever, but it should have more low end than that. Something's up in this circuit. Let me show you what the speaker is. It's an Alnico Legend 10, looks like. So it should have a bit of low end. Anyway, let's take this out of the cab and see what we see. All right, I'm not seeing horror shows, not absolute horror shows inside, but let me bring it in on the bench and get everything set up, and you can take a peek for yourself. Well, here's a hint of things to come. That's a good solder joint, isn't it? They fused the neutral, and that's also a really great solder joint there. I'm not sure how they managed this one. Apparently, they didn't have an iron that could actually solder to the chassis properly, so this solder is mostly just kind of floating on the chassis and then just a overheated, non-secure mess here. This filter cap is 20-20-20, like many of the originals, and they've added this 8 microfarad in parallel with the first one. So, 28, that makes a huge difference. Not much. I may or may not keep this. I may replace this, depending how it measures. I will be redoing all these connections either way, whether it's this one or a new one. But this little 8 microfarad is doing nothing. Generic bypass caps just kind of tack soldered in place, really ugly solder joints. As I suspected, all they've done is they've disconnected the wires coming from the mid and bass cap, and they don't have the slope resistor. So instead of a treble cap, which is 250 picofarad in the original, they've got this 22 nanofarad, and that's going to the volume pot. And then they've kind of sort of done the 5E3 circuit with a 4.7 nanofarad to ground and a 500 picofarad hanging off the wiper of the volume pot going to the input of one side of the treble cap, and the wiper going to the input rather than to the wiper. It's a little bit backwards, but it's more or less the 5E3 tone circuit done rather poorly with really amazingly bad solder joints, including a poorly disturbed chassis ground that was an unnecessary error. That did not have to be changed. And I assume that they put in a 1 meg pot here for the tone pot like you'd find in a 5E3, as opposed to the 250K J taper, which would have been here originally. So that's one of the reasons that I can't just rewire this back to stock and have it go out the door. Nothing horrible, really. I mean, nothing great or really worth doing. If you wanted to have more gain in one of these, this would have been one way to get more gain, not the way that they actually did it, but you can take out the full tone stack and just do the tone circuit from the 5E3. And if you implement it a little bit differently than they did here, you can get more gain that way. And you can just remove the negative feedback resistor and get more gain that way. But the owner wants this restored to the original circuit. One of the options I'm going to give the owner, since this is a 1975 going by the power transformer. The output transformer has been changed out for a Mojo Tone Haber. That's fine. Probably necessary at some point in the past. It was nothing to do with these mods. But a 75 has got all this plastic wire that we lovingly call spaghetti in the trade. A lot of excess length here and there. And it's got a heavily waxed board. And if the owner's up for it, I'd like to pull the board, pull everything off the board, remove all the wax, put all the good stuff back, redo the wire with some higher quality stuff, really neat lead dress. I can get the correct treble pot and put this thing back to where it ought to be. That may include a different filter cap, depending on the condition of that one. And this Sovtek 5Y3 is often not a true 5Y3. I will find out. I think I want to do something before I do anything else. So just to see how bad that speaker is, because the speaker that's in there, that Eminence Legend, has no low end. So let me get my RCA to 1/4-inch adapter and hook up my cab to this and see what it sounds like with a real speaker. Well, I mentioned the RCA to 1/4-inch adapter out of habit from Champs, but I forgot they'd already changed out for a Switchcraft 1/4-inch plug there. So I'll just plug straight in. Let's see what this thing sounds like. Well, it sounds better, certainly through the real speaker. Still doesn't have much low end to speak of, and the circuit itself should have plenty of low end, even with that tiny output transformer. So, depending on what the owner says about whether I can rebuild this really properly or just fix the things that are majorly wrong, could be that one of the resistors has drifted. Let me find my little pointer so I can point out what I'm talking about. For example, this is a 22 nanofarad cap hung off this 100K plate resistor on this, what would be the second gain stage. This amp doesn't have a phase inverter, so the second gain stage. And then the other side of that cap goes to the grid of the output tube, but it has a resistor to ground here, 220K. If that 220K is drifted small, or the cap is drifted small, you're not going to have as much low end. It could be something else. It could be a problem in the negative feedback. I'll find it. I'll fix it. This thing should have a good bit more low end than what we just heard. This is the newest cap in the amp. It's going to go away, but that would not be a contributing factor to the lack of low end. Could also be a bad cathode resistor somewhere. Not going to worry about it until I hear from the owner. So I expect either way, this thing will be very, very healthy pretty soon. Before the owner, I'm curious. This speaker is definitely not. Before I call the owner, I'm curious about one thing. This speaker is definitely not original to the amp. This amp would have had an 8-inch speaker. It's got a 10-inch in here. And I can see at least one original screw hole unused. And this Legend sounds pretty naff. Not a lot of low end at all, even for a 10-inch speaker and an open back cab. So before I do anything else, is that a number 6 in there? That one doesn't want to grab. I want to pull the speaker, make sure it's not got a rough cut bit of wood anywhere. Like if they cut open the baffle to make the speaker fit, do they do a good job? Is something rubbing where it should not? Et cetera, et cetera. Not the best job. A little bit of Velcro visible there, but nothing that should make this absolutely horrible. It feels like it's loose. Yeah, it's turning. Suppose it's been working all right, though. Got some baffle deformation right here, though. The baffle bulges right here. It's been broken in the past. I can move it with my fingers. I think the only thing holding that baffle together is the speaker. I will point this out to the owner because this is not ideal, and it's going to get worse here where that's partially broken and flexible. But the trouble is, this is a 75, so it's after 72, so it doesn't have cleats. This baffle is essentially particle board, but it's glued into slots. It's dadoed into this cab and glued, so the only way to replace it is either to replace the entire cabinet or to take this to someone who does woodwork and have them cut this flush and then install cleats for a new baffle. Also in this area, you can see that the grill cloth is separate. It's on a frame. It's separate from the baffle. So this is kind of the worst of the cabinet eras. And this speaker makes an odd sound. See if I can isolate it for you. It's not making it now, but it had a sound like something was rattling around inside of it. Let me check see if there's any voice coil rub. Seems okay, and the speaker seems pretty much brand new. I don't see a model on here other than Legend. Eminence speaker, Legend, and it's Onico. Most Eminence Legends say 1058 or whatever, 1275 or whatever the model is. This may be a really cheap speaker. That's all that's wrong with it. This is not the ideal baffle. The owner may choose to live with it. I might be able just to soak this part of this baffle with a bunch of super glue. And here, where this screws come loose, was it? This one's loose. This one's loose. This one's loose. This one's loose. Yeah. The other option might be better, since this frame, the grill cloth is on a removable frame, is for me to push all these screws out the other way, undo all the screws and see if I can fit T-nuts on the other side. But I'm not sure because this was not done professionally. You can see how the line wanders. It might be too close in some spots for a T-nut to grab fresh particle board. I hate doing this kind of woodwork. I don't have a woodworking setup, and if I were to do woodwork, I'd want to do Norm Abrams kind of stuff, not just reinforcing damaged bits of old particle board. But I'll do it if that's what's necessary. But I will also see if there is a replacement Champ cab that fits this chassis precisely, because I've got dealer pricing on such things from a few places. That might be the best bet. This was never the high quality cabinet of a 65. Anyway, after the owner sees this video, he and I will talk and we'll decide which way to go forward. Until then, thanks for watching.